There is a fifth dimension.
A dimension of sound.
Damn it, Frank! We tell him to be quiet. I spilled my hot cup of Uranus again.
A dimension of sight.
Hey, Arch. I'm gonna sock you in the puss.
A dimension of mind.
Nan Adams, is that you?
Next stop, the Twilight Zone.
We should probably jump into things
I guess
and
so.
stuff.
We can go talk about old shit no more. Or we'll talk.
Well, actually, we're talking about really old shit.
Well, that was the player I sent you a picture of, Nick. By the way.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was listening, but like my brain's not functioning at the moment, so I'm not ignoring you. I just like my brain's like.
I mean, do you want me to
I
drive
hate getting
over
up at
there and
6 a.m.
bitch slap you?
Yes, please. Would you? Would someone bitch slap me? Just get me fucking back in motion.
I'm gonna get Remo Williams on this.
Yo, fuck yourself. Anyways,
Remo Williams for life.
I'm sorry, Alex. I know you really want to talk about this episode, and we'll bring you on for the next episode where you can really talk about snakes on a plane or whatever the hell that episode is, Queen of the Nile.
Oh, get off your high
We'll
horse!
see.
Hey, everybody,
We'll
welcome
see.
to this
I
week's
might have to
episode
rain check that
Penis
one.
Pump.
Anyway,
Okay.
do your job.
All right. I will do my job and talk about the fifth dimension of the Twilight Zone podcast, the greatest podcast ever known by now in a creek, an occurrence at Bridge. Okay, so we're back for the last episode of 2024. Thank you guys for following us for the year. We're getting close to the end of the actual fifth dimension, or the fifth dimension, the Twilight Zone itself. But we're not there yet. We're continuing 2025. Jacob has decided to quit. That's why we have Alex here. So she's going to be our new brand host. As Jacob. Oh, I'm sorry, Jacob.
think I just
You
got
didn't know
fired.
about this? Yeah.
I
Jacob,
got hired
waited
and
up for
then
other
fired. I
opportunities.
think that's even worse.
Yeah. No, we hired Jacob to only come on for like 125 episodes. So his contract is up. And Alex, you're going to come in and finish out the series.
They didn't
No,
even.
just
that'll
do
be
like
it.
just do like the K-pop girly thing and be like, okay, we're just gonna, we'll debate about it for a little bit. Oh, it's renewed. So.
Yeah, exactly. We could be like when I saw Better Man and Robbie Williams got kicked out of Take That or whatever that band was that he was in and became a coke addict. It's good times. So anyways,
Going crazy.
guys, I know we're going to Plaid. Okay, so today is an interesting thing to talk about. It's an interesting way to end out the year. Alex, thank you for coming on. I know you and Jacob and myself, not so much Triv, are gonna have a very busy holiday season at our jobs. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be hectic. Triv, you don't work retail. I'm sorry.
I know
you
I
can't be
don't, but that
involved.
doesn't mean I work in marketing. That doesn't mean that I don't get my ass handed to me.
You're the
I
odd
need
cartoon out.
Yeah, don't take her out of the equation, man.
No, she's in the equation as a guest.
He's being cartoonist,
host,
Triv.
but-
Don't listen to him.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But anyways, I wish anyone out there in the retail world, good luck. It's gonna be crazy. It's already crazy at places I work at. So yeah. So anyways, Alex, welcome back as usual. Jacob, Triv, I don't care about you guys anymore. I've quit the podcast. I'm leaving, and I'm going off into the outer limits. Does that sound good?
The outer limits is Cabo.
You say it's Caca?
Cabo.
What is Cabo?
What the fuck did you think I said?
I don't know. It sounded like you said Caca.
I said Cabo.
What is Cabo? I'm old. Speak to me like I'm old. What does Cabo mean? Is that like a
Isn't it a
newfangled
It's an
word?
island.
It's a place.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh, I don't know.
Like
I heard
dimension.
words.
What
I
does
heard
it
people say
mean?
words the other day. I'm like,
What
what
does
does that
that
mean?
mean?
Is that like a
I was
is that
just
like a
like-
place in Japan? or
Okay,
something?
now I
Like, what
feel
is-
less bad about him not
Japan.
understanding what the fuck I said because he doesn't even know what the Cabo is.
Oh no! I'm
You
not.
know
No, I know what
Cabo's a
Cabo
place.
is. I know what
It
Cabo
didn't
is. I just
sound like
didn't.
you did though.
No,
That's a
like-
concern.
I'm getting to a point where like people were saying things that might sound like an island, but it means like an expression of something. So I don't know.
It's kind
I'm
of
getting
like
to
that
that
one time
age.
I thought Nick kept saying penis.
He did say
I
penis.
was saying penis. Yeah,
Oh,
you laughed every time I said it.
I did.
And Triv, we broke Triv that day.
You broke me every time.
Yeah, sure. That's exactly. Anyways, it's the or at least the end of the year for us. So we'll be back on January 1st for yeah, that episode. Okay, so today is an episode that I know Alex you've been looking forward to talking about for a while. This is actually an interesting one because it's actually distributed by Pathé Distribution, which is still around today and has been around since like the 1800s, which I didn't realize that they've been around that long.
Oh, like the
Um,
silent movie. They always had a
Mm-hmm.
rooster in all of their
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
they still have that
Pathé?
logo even today.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Pathé.
Pate.
Yeah, they
Pate. Is it Pate
got
or
the like
Pate?
they got the thing with like the
Yeah.
shadows, yeah,
Yep.
hanging.
But I didn't realize they've been around since they've been around since 1896.
Damn, really?
Um,
Yeah, old as
yeah,
hell.
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, they go back as
They're
far as George Millet, really, or in that
Oh
realm.
yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the Lumiere brothers and stuff like that. They go way back. This is a really interesting episode. I don't know. It's kind of hard to classify as a Twilight Zone episode, even though it was in the Twilight Zone because it won an Academy Award. It won the Film Festival Award at Cannes. It's an episode that has a Twilight Zone twist, but is not a Twilight Zone segment. So it's gonna be really interesting. I don't know how we judge this on like a Twilight Zone ranking, but the episode is I think it's season 5, episode 22, which is called Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge, which is directed by Robert Enrico, based off Ambrose Bierce's book from like the 1800s or something like that. Is that right? Am I reading that right?
Yep,
From 1890?
1890s. Yeah, and he actually was in. Ambrose was actually in the Civil War. So
Okay, so that makes a lot of sense. I mean, it seems like it's
Damn, he old.
pretty well worn into the Civil War. But anyways, it stars Roger Jacquet and Cornaly. It's interesting. I don't know. Like it's really interesting. It's a lot of walking, a lot of running through the woods.
It's like the
Surviving
Fellowship of the Ring.
gunshots. Exactly. He walks a lot. And then I don't mean this as like a joke, but there is moments in this where the character played by Roger Jacquet is running, and I think they use the same shot like 3 times in a row.
they
It
did. They
reminded me of
used
that.
different. They used different angles.
Oh, did
I
they?
think that was intentional, though.
Yeah.
I
I-
think
No,
I
I know
agree.
it probably
there's
was.
something there.
Yeah.
I mean the whole episode feels like a fever dream anyways, kind of a
I mean,
um
yeah, kinda.
yeah,
Yes.
it feels like a kind of yeah, like the hunt a little bit.
The fever dream thing is pretty apt.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, one
yeah.
thing that, and it was the reviews on this were kind of funky. We can talk about those later, but one of the reviews was like, did this inspire Monty Python like in Holy Grail
that's
when
what
they're
I'm
like
talking about.
running? No, I
But
know,
yeah,
but
when
I'm
he's
saying
running,
right, but they were asking if that was inspired that, and it's like, well, it's not quite the same thing. There was a different reason for that, but okay.
No, I know it's the idea of like for dramatic effect and stuff like that. I get why they did it. I just thought it was. I'm sitting there going, when is he going to storm the castle and just start murdering everyone? But I know it's more dramatic. It's more serious, and it is what it is. It's him trying to get back to his wife. But Alex, as the one who really, really, really loves this episode more than probably the three of us, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I'm just saying you really love this episode. Why? What makes this episode so interesting? What makes you love it? Basically, I guess is the question.
Oh, I'm so glad you asked before we even talked about
Anyways,
what
Jacob,
it's
you were saying. I'm
about.
just kidding. No, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I guess the best way I could establish, I guess, my opinion on this episode is, first off, I should probably say that like this episode is definitely more like top 5 to top 7 of the Twilight Zone for me personally. So I placed it pretty high up there. I personally remember watching the episode and initially I watched the episode actually through one of my classes at USC, and the way I watched it was just through reading the short story first that was written by Ambrose. And if you read the short story, I definitely recommend checking it out. I think it gives a bit more substance than this episode does. Even with it being a short story. From what I recall of it, I know that the short story goes a little more into detail, or at least it gives more context about that lead character up to when he's getting executed. I guess that's sort of the best way I can say it without necessarily like spoiling it or like giving you a whole Sparks notes about the actual like story that this is inspired from. But nevertheless, I personally really love this episode because it really is grounded in realism and then still gives that sort of almost like sweet delusion and twist that we're also familiar with that in a way just really encapsulates how the Twilight Zone is done well, at least to me personally, but also something that I would say works brilliantly well in this episode that stands out compared to other ones is that it really does thrive in the silence that it sort of exists within. You know, you kind of are existing in these spaces along the lead man in this case, essentially going through almost this sort of journey to escape potentially this near death scenario, or at least that's kind of like the plot of it, is that it's like, well, what if he survived and he was able to escape? And I think it's able to convey so much emotion and so much tragedy without having any sort of screenwriting involved to then deliver the message. And I think in addition to it being a really sort of beautiful way of encapsulating sort of like what makes almost like the exist like almost like mortality and sort of those small and big things that I think sometimes we can take for granted as part of the human experience. I think in a way it also is just really like it's just really captivating to kind of get a glimpse into sort of the story of just this man who's really living the final moments of his life in a way, and even with how devastating the ending is, which we'll get to. I think it just is a great sort of, I don't know, it's just a great sort of story on this person, and that where you understand like what he appreciates and what he's trying to escape from, and it just is, I don't know, from start to finish, I think it's just a really beautiful story, I think. And it's so unique too because it's not even a story that was created by like Serling and crew. This was something that was also distributed, which I think makes it kind of an interesting conversation in and of itself about sort of the potential that there could have been for other stories to be kind of shared, at least through like kind of that Western audience, I would say, versus if this was only existed as like a live action short film. I think it's just really interesting that they decided to put this in as an episode, but I can't imagine this episode, or I can't imagine this short film existing without it also coexisting as an episode on the Twilight Zone. But yeah, I guess that's kind of the best way I can go off of it. And you know, I'll get
Yeah.
off my soapbox now. So
No, I think you make a lot of good points, especially
Yeah.
the way that they use sound in this is something that you don't, with the exception of Invaders, you don't get this level of just natural sound in the environment to really tell the story. And not to say there's not other pieces, you do have some audio that's put in there, and there's the jazz piece that's kind of in there as well. But by and large, it is just nat sound to kind of tell you and let the visuals do the talking.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like it won an Academy Award. It won awards at Cannes Film Festival, which are prestigious awards. But I don't think this episode, like as you said, Alex, I don't think this episode would be as well beloved or well known if it were for the Twilight Zone, which was hugely popular. And I don't know where I would put this episode, but I think it's an interesting, unique episode on the simple fact that it deals with like, you know, trying to get back to not only the people we love, but trying to survive in a world that, you know, you make one mistake and you're completely just torn down by your bootstraps. And it's interesting how it starts to play out, but I don't know. It's interesting. I like how the guy's last name is Farquhar, by the way. I don't know if you guys noticed
Yeah, I
that.
saw that.
Peyton Farquhar. I'm like, oh, I
Lord
wonder if
fuck what?
the rope was too long, you know, if you know what I mean. But
Did they shoot
um,
this in French and then dub it, or was it shot in English? Do we know?
I don't know. Some of the guys look like they were speaking English, so who the hell
Did it ever
knows?
show anybody's mouth when they were
Yeah,
speaking?
it did
I
actually.
remember.
hmm
When the soldiers were getting ready to fire at Peyton, and it shows a couple of them talking. Maybe the dub's like maybe this is like bad lip reading dub type of thing where yeah, it looks like it's English, but it's really French. But I mean, it
I was
looks
gonna
English to me.
say, a lot of times with Giallo, they'll dub it into whatever language, and just the way that things fall or the way that things are spoken, they do
Yeah.
look relatively similar.
Yeah.
I mean, they're both French and English are similar in ways. So, I mean, I could see them matching up to a degree. I was
Okay,
because I know it was
Jacob.
a French production. I was
Yeah.
surprised that the little bit of dialogue there is in English, but I didn't remember seeing anybody's mouth moving. It sounded like every time somebody was talking, it was like right off camera or something like that.
Yeah. It's they're like it's actually the Japanese version where they actually, you know, it's in English, but you can tell it's dubbed. But okay, Jacob, I gotta know as somebody who has a lot of interesting opinions about episodes that we may like that you don't like. Did you like this episode? Were you bored by it? How did you feel about it? Because I know it's not spacefaring. It's not something that I would think you would like, but I could be completely wrong. I mean, what do you think?
I'd
I
like to
don't know.
point
I
out,
like. I'm. What's up?
I'd like to point out that Nick made the assertion when speaking with Alex a moment ago. He said, "Seeing as how you like this episode more than any of us on here, without consulting me,
Or
as
me.
usual, I'm left out to dry,
Well, but
wet."
you got to
He asked
I was
remember.
what
gonna
her
say
opinion
something
is. Asks
also.
everyone,
You got
not
to
me.
remember. She's been talking about this episode longer than we talked about Jezebel.
I don't get a a narration to read
We
this
love you,
week,
Jacob.
nor do
No,
I
you
give
do.
any fucks given on my opinion.
No, it's
Oh, that's why we love you, Jacob, because we give no fucks given.
no, but like there is something that you could read though.
I mean, it's okay. It's not on Wikipedia, so it doesn't exist.
What it is? It is on Wikipedia.
It is not.
Do you
I
see the
looked.
section of Twilight Zone airing?
Yeah.
So under there, when you see
Oh, fuck.
its Sterling introduction is as follows, delivered while sitting on a soundstage next to a movie camera, and then it gives the intro, and then Sterling cozy narration states.
We're not at the opening and closing narration yet.
I
Oh,
know.
yeah,
Don't we have to
but
wait
I was
like
making
for
sure you
45
knew.
Nick's
minutes?
job to say when
You were
that
just
happens.
like, well, I didn't know that I don't have an opening or closing narration this time, and you just
Why
skipped
the hell you
over me. And it's
fact-checking
like,
me and
well,
shit?
yes, sir.
This
Because
is
it's her
this is the
job.
giving Jake shit hour. That's what we have to do every
No,
episode.
I was being
I'm
quiet.
not-
Nobody had nothing to say. Open my mouth.
I'm not trying to
Everybody
give this
piled
man
on.
shit. I'm just informing him in advance because
Well, no.
he was having his conversation before this, so I didn't want to interrupt. Anyway,
Here we are.
Oh my god.
This is what you did. This. You did this.
gotta have like
Yeah,
a like
slowly.
a almost like Western like cowboy
What?
sort of like I don't
What the fuck
What's
is
the word?
Western or cowboy about this?
sorry,
You brought me back to reality with that.
Oh my
I see about the
god.
like fish out here for a second where I was like, oh,
Okay.
you're
Anyway.
like yeehaw.
In all
My
in
bad.
all
My
seriousness, in all seriousness, Triv, what do you think of this episode?
Oh, you motherfucker! What?
What? You don't have. Jake doesn't get to answer the question. Jake,
That was
answer the question.
Triv, that was the point.
God.
That was the joke. Anyways, Jacob, please have at it. Tell me what you like, what you dislike. You make fun of me, whatever you want to do.
Yeah. It's all right. No, in all seriousness, I really like this episode. I thought this was awesome.
That's cool.
I really okay. A few things. I love the cinematography, especially in the beginning. I thought it like had a very cinematic look, unlike it is. I mean, it's a short film, so that makes sense why it looks like that, as opposed to like it differentiates itself from other Twilight Zone episodes, which it wasn't made as a Twilight Zone episode, so that's why. But immediately you can tell a difference because I was curious as to what's it going to look like because I knew it was made as a movie or a short film, and it was not made with Twilight Zone in mind at all. And then they bought it, so I was curious as to how it was going to look, and it looked great. I thought it looked really good. I really liked how they played on the visual aspect of everything, and the vast majority of the story told was visual. I feel like you could have watched this with the volume off. It wouldn't have been as impactful because I think they do some really cool things with music too. I really liked how they didn't need to say anything. You knew exactly what was going on. And I like the whole idea about this guy, um, you know, his last thoughts before he's about to die. We don't know why he's up there, but it doesn't really matter. We don't need to know. Of course, at first I'm wondering why, but then the tension grabs you. The tension when he's standing on that plank was like palatable. It was like crazy. Like I felt you felt his tension. He's sitting there like, it's gonna happen any minute. And like when they say something to him, he's like, Jesus, just get it over with, you know. And like I felt that way the whole time. I thought that was like expertly done. It was not cheesy. The acting wasn't corny. Like it wasn't that 60s even Twilight Zone kind of acting where they're like kind of big and theatrical. It wasn't any of that. I like the twist. I will say I guessed the twist long before we got there, but I still really enjoyed it. When he was in the water and like he was being like it was like stormtroopers were shooting at him.
I
And
had
like
that same thought.
I thought of it. I was like, I wonder. I remember going through my head, and I was like, I wonder if this is what's going on. And it was exactly even the way it played out. Because I was like, I wonder if right there at the end it's going to be kind of like a, and that's exactly. But
Well,
I was like, I doubt they would show that visual. Like usually they'll show like feet or something, but they did.
oh,
They
yeah.
showed it, and I was like, okay,
Well,
there you go. But I
I'll give
still
you.
really enjoyed it.
Well, I was gonna say I'll give you two examples of good foreshadowing: fog and gates. Those gates open, the
Oh
fog.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's
I
very
thought that
reminiscent of
too.
like, yeah.
The
I'm
gates
like,
thing,
oh yeah, right.
I
Yeah.
was like, that was very, those gates were very predominant. And then also, I thought it was like gonna, I didn't know if maybe it had already happened. And I mean, people already know what happened. If you're watching this episode, you know, but I thought maybe he was already dead. And like, because he went through the gates, and I saw that. And right after that, the whole thing, they did this where he's like running to his wife in like the slow-mo thing. And like, she's all like, and he's like, "Oh," but then it seemed like he was getting closer, and then the next shot, he was like further away. It did that like two or three times, and I was like, is this like purgatory? He's gonna be like, he can't ever quite reach her. But then they reached each other, and no, then the end
Had
happened.
that
But
wild fucking ending. It was crazy.
yeah,
I've seen
but
this episode several times. That still gets me. That whole when he reaches his wife. But we'll talk about that.
yeah, I thought it was great, and it was never that moment that they do there at the end could really be that could go badly with execution. I thought they did it really well. I thought this was a great episode. I mean, this one's gonna be for me. It's gonna be way on up there, going down for Chance to Dream.
Alex might be getting her wish tonight, from what it sounds like. Triv, what do you think? Did Triv disappear on us?
No.
That much.
She's like real quiet. She's I see what you're doing.
Eh,
You're off the
how I was
podcast,
just, like,
Triv.
I like how I
Fine.
was just standing here, just like waiting and blinking. Like I'm ready.
No, I'm kind of in the same boat as Jake. Cinematography was fantastic. The point of view shots, especially underwater, were incredibly well
Mhm.
done. The running but not really getting anywhere was masterful.
Yeah.
They did really well, kind of balancing timing with everything.
Mhm.
Again, like I said before, the way that they used natural sound was fantastic.
Yes.
Yeah, the only thing I was waiting for them was for them to land in passerby for some reason.
That would make
True.
sense.
We needed
Right.
Abraham Lincoln to come out of the shadows.
Oh god.
Absolutely. As
Be
soon
like,
as he
come
went
with
in,
me.
oh, 100%. As soon as he went into the water, I kind of came to the same conclusion that you did, Jake. It was like, oh, okay, this is probably what that is. I think
Yeah.
it has as good of a twist as any Twilight Zone episode, and I think it was masterful of Serling to see this and see the potential in what this was. Obviously, it won freaking awards. It's top notch, but to be able to hone in on it specifically for Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
Although I guess it also aired on Alfred Hitchcock Presents back in 1959 as well. So for
Oh, really?
variation
Is
on
it
that.
that
Sorry.
old?
According to
Yeah, it came out.
IMDb, which take that how you will, it was adapted. It wasn't specifically this, but it was
Well,
adapted
well, I
for
know
Hitchcock.
it's a trilogy of short films put into one like an anthology. It's an anthology, I guess, full-length movie that has two other short films that this guy made,
And
according
this
to
doesn't
the
this
Wikipedia.
specific piece
That
of
would make
trivia
sense then.
doesn't reference Enrico or Robert Enrico specifically. It just talks about the story was this story was adapted for Hitchcock. So I'm
Oh,
not sure where
so
that sits.
so they just adapted their own version of it then.
That's what I'm guessing.
Okay, okay. So
Hmm.
it wasn't all right. That makes sense. Yeah, it says that the other two short stories in the movie were Chickamauga and The Mockingbird. And together, the trilogy
My
film was released in
king
1963 as
bird. Yeah.
Accord de la Vie in the Midst of Life.
La Dolce Vita.
Not
Yeah.
La Dolce Vita, La Dolce Muero. I'm
La
not
Gotcha.
Vida
sure.
Loca.
Yeah.
um
Us Lonely Boys?
okay, so my thoughts on this episode, my opinion of
Hey,
this
Macarena.
episode is Jacob, do the opening narration for us.
Boo! Give your initial thoughts.
This is the best episode of the Twilight Zone.
The best?
It took you like 20 minutes for you to be like, I don't know where it's gonna be, and then you're just like,
I,
yeah, it's
I
the
was
best
I
episode.
was stringing you guys along. This is as simple as an episode you can get, but as complex as an episode you can get. It's an episode that hit me hard on the simple fact of like how desperate he was to get back to his wife, how desperate the situation was, how excellent it was executed. This episode does so much in 28 minutes that it actually, when it gets to the ending, even though I know what happens, I was still shocked as hell, and I don't ever get shocked as hell that very often. I think the only time that's ever done that, maybe I don't know, Death Head Revisited. But I legit think this is the best episode of the Twilight Zone. I don't think there's gonna be an episode that I mean we probably won't put it at number one, but it's such a like this tone, the feel, the story, the idea of what happens at the end. This is like perfect storytelling, and I can see why it won an Academy Award for. I mean, I was sitting there going, I'm like, it's just everything. Everything about it is perfect. I have no problems with this episode, and I think it's the best episode of the Twilight Zone, which is hard. It's hard to say because I am a huge proponent of the fucking monsters on Due on Maple Street. But yeah, yeah.
Sounds like you got some animosity towards it now.
Apparently I do because I always believed that was the best episode of the series, but I think this is above and beyond anything that they will have ever done and will probably ever do. Even with the mask coming up, and Trip's favorite, the bewitching pool, which I'm sure she loves. Yeah.
Funny.
Damn, I wasn't expecting
So
that.
what
I
the
will say
what
the mask,
Trip?
I can definitely see the mask being like at least like top 20.
Yeah.
I can see it being up there for sure.
I definitely see.
No, the
I mean,
mask is
we're not
great.
there. We're not there
Mhm.
yet, but I definitely see this as top
Yeah.
10. But
I wouldn't see the
I don't know about
mask
number
as like
one.
number
But hey, we'll see.
one.
I'm telling you, that's where I would put it. But if we were going on what I think you guys would put it, I put it. But Death has revisited.
I definitely
Um,
think this is absolutely the well, I don't remember those, but the best of season 5 by a long shot, and one of the best
Mhm.
in the series.
Absolutely.
And it's
Absolutely.
so funny because it's like right in the middle of season 5 too.
Yeah.
It's just like a banger.
It
yeah,
is
it's
I
so
wish
far.
I didn't call the ending. That's the only thing. I wish I didn't see the ending coming. I think it would have been so jarring and just like, oh my God. But
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, I think
that is a testament to it though that I did call it. And as it drew closer to the end, I was like, that's something like that or that realm. That's what's going on because it started getting more ethereal and everything. But it still was fantastic, even though I knew that that was coming.
Well,
Sorry,
that
Nick.
plays on the simple fact of like what happens when that incident happens and what they say happens to you when that happens and I think the whole idea of like the shock and awe of what happens at the end really took me aback and I haven't felt like that since Death's Head Revisited, which is kind of crazy, but yeah, this fucking episode rocks every every piece of Twilight Zone. So,
Rocked
yeah,
out with a cock out. Yeah.
exactly. It surely did.
Jam out with
Jacob. Jacob, let's do that literally the opening of the episode narration.
lame. Thought I had a week off.
But hey, you can do it in your little pictures or whatever you do it.
Think that I got too much respect for this episode to do something so I don't know, some word that's bad. I'm really tired. Yeah. Tonight, a presentation so special and unique that for the first time in the 5 years we've been presenting The Twilight Zone, we're offering a shot, a film short that's shot in France by others. Winner of the Cannes Film Festival of 1962, as well as other international awards. Here is a haunting study of the incredible from the past master of the incredible, Ambrose Bierce. Here is the French production of An Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge, also known as A Penis Stretcher at Owl Creek Bridge.
I think it's just
In the
Ambrose
Twilight Zone.
Pierce. I think it's almost like Pierce, but with a B.
Yeah,
Yeah, Jacob.
I said that's what I said.
Yeah.
Said
It
Ambrose
kind of didn't
Bierce.
sound like that at first. That's why I was like, let me clarify.
It's this mic, I think.
Uh-huh.
It's on the
Oh my
fritz.
god.
Uh-huh.
Terrible. Terrible.
Okay.
Okay, so this episode dates 100. It takes place 100 years before this episode releases. People are on a bridge. They're getting ready to hang a guy named Peyton Farquhar, and yeah, it starts out really dark and really sad. And as he's being strung up, he sees his wife coming towards him, and you're like, oh yeah, he's going to die. And the rope breaks, and it turns into hundreds of beavers. The rope breaks, and I don't know, crazy shit happens. He's being shot at. He's being, I think they throw some rockets at him or some shit.
There's a
gets crazy.
cannon.
Yeah, cannon. Rockets, cannons. It's all the same. They all do the same thing, but none of it hits him. It's like Jacob said, the stormtrooper nonsense. Which is your first kind of clue that there's something really off about this scenario, which is what I love about this episode. Is the simple fact that no shots are hitting him. He seems to evade every single. I mean, I'm not saying guns in the 1800s were 100% accurate, but I'm pretty sure someone would have been able to shoot him
These
and
are
kill
military
him.
personnel. I feel like I mean, he
Yeah.
did turn into Michael Phelps there for a while and like took off.
Right. But that's your first clue that there's something off about this whole episode. The simple fact that escaping pretty easily without ever being shot. The rope breaks. I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure ropes don't break that easily. I mean, especially in the 1800s, when I'm pretty sure ropes were a lot stronger than they are now. And then I think they actually use wire to hang people now, but rope was not
still
that
hanging
easily
people?
breakable. What's that?
We still hanging people?
I don't know. I think we do. Seems
Really?
like what we do. I
Like
think
here
they
in
do
the
that in
States?
some states. I think so. I actually think they do, believe it or not. I don't know
They
where,
actually
but
do
I
it?
think like Iowa or something like that in the cornfields.
Okay.
But I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Like this first segment of him escaping, like it's once again he sees his wife, and then all of a sudden the rope breaks. His children, his wife, and it should give you a hint about what's going to come later on. But I don't know. What do you guys think? Tell me.
I
Tell me
thought
now.
the panning shots with the trees in the foreground, the cinematography was great. A very simple move, but it just looked. It's almost like it was like giving you just little snippets as like a third party of what was going on, and like you kind of felt that way the whole movie, I guess, of kind of like a third party because you didn't know the whole story, so you're having to piece it together yourself. Yeah,
You see the rope when they're kind of stringing him up, and even the knot on the rope is all kinds of wonky.
yeah, it's like
Like
a
it
granny
doesn't it doesn't look like what you would have as a traditional hanging knot, but semantics when you're talking about something like this. Um,
Is
but
that a
the rope
French
seem
thing? Are they
maybe
like,
I would assume
how
they
do
would.
you size the noose? I don't know. Yeah, Pierre is
Um,
very good with the knots.
I was really hoping that the board didn't break before they were ready to roll, because oof.
Like,
But
what if he
the
stood back and like popped up and hit you in the face or something, or like tripped you? Because like
it would not have had the emotional significance that it had.
I don't think that would have
It
taken
would
the
have been
impact. A little
France's
bit of
funniest
impact.
home videos. No, but like when you saw him fall and the rope like seemed really, really extra long, or when he landed in the water, it's like, okay, something isn't what it seems. And you know that anyway because obviously it's Twilight. Well, it airs in the Twilight Zone. So, you knew something was wonky, but it was just a matter of exactly what.
Right, right. But you, Alex, what do you think?
I don't have too much to add about the rope, just because I
Well,
feel
just
like
like the opening stuff, before he gets to the forest.
mm, I mean, the only sort of visual context that it gives in the beginning is just that if it's there's like that paper like on the tree that says that anyone interfering with bridges, railroads, or tunnels will be summarily executed, and that the troops are of the Union. So like giving that, I think it gives more than enough to understand that this is maybe like leaning more towards like Confederacy would be my sort of, I guess, recollection of what I remember from the short stories. So I think that does kind of make sense where it's like if you're sort of against them in that way, or like maybe this person I mean, honestly, like I think even with this story, he like the man doesn't really need a name. Like he could have just been like prisoner or like man, and I think it would have been able to convey the same thing. But yeah, I would say I think just being able to, I guess, establish that exposition, and then I actually did really like how the sound design was for the clock, because I think once it
Yeah.
because that starts ticking around the time that the execution is supposedly about to start, and then kind of from that point onward, it almost feels like time has just gone still for a good chunk of it,
Yeah,
which I
there's a
thought
lot
was
of
which I
there's a
thought was
lot of
actually a really fun
forest.
creative choice. So.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing that really makes the episode interesting is there's a lot like to get like you have no idea where you are in the placement of everything. Like the fact that he seems to
Owl
be
Creek.
so close. What? Thank you. Yeah, you're out. Thank you, Jacob. Uh,
That's what I'm here for.
but no, like you're, but you're in the woods, and there's never really enough there to signify like how close he is to his home, how long he's been in the river. So that's when it becomes like more dreamlike, more the word whatever word I said earlier, where it just things start to feel out of place. Whether it be crawling insects or the way the trees are all seem to be lying, like you're walking down a path, and then the
I think that
gates and
was
stuff
on
like
the lead
that.
up to his house, wasn't it? Wasn't the tree path that was like the lead up to his house?
Yeah, but it
That's
just
kind of
seems
like
like
a
there's a
traditional
lot of
style
there's like it
plantation
doesn't
thing.
feel like right. It just doesn't feel like normal like life. It just feels like a very earthy old
Ethereal.
thing, I guess. Yeah, ethereal. Thank you. I
He
can't do
yeah, and he
words
did
tonight.
just kind of end up there.
I mean, he's like, unless Owl Creek Bridge is like right next to his house or something like that, which would be an interesting way to like execute someone. But it's just really interesting because this could be an episode that just completely doesn't work on the fact that he's just kind of running. But I think the fact that they add in like, the feeling of the, like you said, Alex, with the clock, and then the idea of like, you almost feel like they're constantly chasing him and he's running and trying to get back to his wife. And it really has a sense of like unease and like what's that word?
It definitely
What?
plays with the idea of time
Yeah,
being a construct in a
yeah,
way that it's that it's like there are times where the time where I was like, oh, there are times, but there are moments within, I guess, the episode where the time feels so like slow and
mm,
so almost like somewhere like stretched out, and then there are a couple moments where it feels like it's not even dragging, but it just like everything just feels so quick
It's
at the
stretched
same
yeah,
out.
time, but it's not like they speed up the footage or anything. The only kind of moment that they manipulate that through editing is just with the slow motion, from the moment that he comes out of the water and then is confronted with the idea of the troops actually preparing to like shoot for him, and being
right,
able to kind of like sort of have this sort of like in the moment revelation about like what the fuck's going on, at least in this sort of fantastical sort of scenario. But yeah, I think other than that, I think it allows itself to just sort of exist also, which I think is an interesting choice. Like it doesn't feel rushed. Like I feel like this is one of the episodes where it just really nailed like how to pace like something that is like 22 minutes. But I
Yeah,
think that kind of I think that
mhm.
is contributed by like just how simple and effective this story is and like how it's told too.
Right. Yeah, I appreciate the fact that in even 28 minutes, it like you said, it takes its time and adds dimension and what is that word? The when they give like what is the type of feel, I guess you could say. So
Like aura or like
aura,
atmosphere.
yeah, an aura, yeah, an aura, aura, however
Hmm.
you say that. Yeah, so what you guys? Anything?
Some
I
deep
said
shit.
my piece. One of the little details that they did that was kind of cool was they show a close up of his hands and how tightly his hands are bound, and then
Right.
magically when he gets into the water, he's able to pull them apart and get himself untangled and such. It's a nice
Yeah.
little thing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. It's pretty crazy shit because, like it seems like a set of circumstances where everything just seems to be working right for him at the right moment, and that never happens. I don't know a time where everything happened in succinct order of like, you know, positivity. It's usually something happens that's good and all of a sudden like three things that happen that was bad. I don't know. This episode hit me a lot harder than I remember. It's really weird. Like I'm kind of at a loss for words because I want to talk about like this on a critical level. I'm trying to find something that's bad with it, and I just can't. I really can't, which is
The
I
colors
don't
were very
know.
muted.
Yes. It was black and white, so that was a problem too.
Wow,
So
thanks for that
yeah,
lovely observation, Jacob. For a black and
there's
white series. Thank you
they
so
gotta
All right.
stop.
much.
Are we going to continue to use this as a crutch, or are we going to face reality?
There's too much fog too. I mean, they gotta stop smoking on the sets. Too much
I
rope.
on the sound design thing you guys talked about. I thought
Yeah.
that was. I think I mentioned that. I don't know. I'm kind of loopy tonight, but I thought the sound design was fantastic here. And in the beginning, you mentioned the hands being tightly bounded, like or bound. Uh, that whole thing just added to the unease of the situation where he's sitting there and he's when he because at first he seems I'm not gonna say he's happy to die, but he just kind of seems stoic. Not maybe not stoic, but unfazed. Like they put him there, he's just like, okay. You get the idea pretty quick is what's going on, but once he like sees his wife and his kids, then he's like starts to show some emotion and like his hands he starts trying to move them around and you just hear like the rope making that like twist noise and it's all like there was very little dialogue, there's no music until like later on, it's just all these ambient noises that some of them are cranked up a bit that just made me feel like uneasy but like in a well not a good way but like good for the experience kind of way. Like you felt you want when he's like twisting his hands around and you hear that rope, you just want that rope to break. I don't even know what this guy did. But I'm just like, oh my God, yeah, get out. I feel claustrophobic and tied up with you. And you're just like waiting for it's like a balloon, like when a little kid's got a balloon right next to your head, just going, you're like, it's gonna bust any minute. That's how I felt.
It's a great building of tension for sure.
Yes. And the sound design was a huge part of that throughout the episode, but
Hmm.
especially during the moments on the bridge. The rest of it gets kind of like loud and, crazy until we get to the end when they slow down a bit, literally, and they play with sound again there. But I thought the bridge parts were wonderfully done.
Yeah, I really like when the rope snaps and it kind of is almost like slow motion a little bit, like time is slowing down. It has like it's just a really cool shot of watching the way he falls into the water and the way the
I
rope
thought the rope was
snaps.
still attached. I was like, are they drowning? Because they tied him all, they bound him, like his legs and everything. And I was like, okay, they had a noose on him, but he just went in the water before I realized it broke. And I was like, are they gonna like dip him in the water and like bring him up like they're fishing? But
They're trying to catch Catfish Hunter.
yeah, but then apparently then you see the rope broken, but
Yeah,
which I think
it's
would still break somebody's neck
I
in
think
that
that
height.
fall would have killed him. That fall, like he was got lucky with that fall. It's like, oh, I'm alive, and they're trying to shoot me, but I'm gonna survive, and you
It's
know,
Well,
it's
it says it's
weird.
like a rural bridge. So I'm assuming
Right
that
by his
maybe it's
house,
not
so
as like I'm assuming
Well,
I guess the bridge wouldn't be like
Well,
as high
but it's
maybe compared to
also
like I don't know if it's like the ocean.
but it's also a creek, so creeks aren't usually that deep, are they?
it's a creek.
Am I wrong on that?
Some
I
parts.
mean, it
Well,
might depend on the creek or the
fro-
well, he says it falls into the river. My assumption was
That's
that it was a
true.
river, so rivers
Also,
can be as deep or shallow depending on the area. But I guess at that, based on the positioning of the bridge, it's like I can imagine it being pretty deep where that is.
well, from above it looked quite shallow, but then when he gets down, he goes down at least a good 10, 12 feet. So,
Mm.
I mean, that's semantics, but
I think one of
Should
the
have
things
seen
that
a
added to that
bear.
tension I was talking about too is the fact that he was about to be hung. And me personally, I find being hung, not that I've ever witnessed someone being hung, but like on in movies and stuff, such a violent, brutal, sudden act. It's like that when the person falls and just like their body stops midair and you know that their neck is just broken. I find that so violent.
That's what makes the
And
ending so crazy.
well,
Is just
It's like a
but
literal
I also
snap into reality again.
yeah.
I
yeah.
had like this comfort zone too where I was like, yeah, but they're not going to show that on Twilight Zone. We might see like I said earlier, like his legs or like something, but no. But even though
Mhm.
I felt that in the beginning, I was like just so tense. I was like, oh no, they're going to show it, and it's such a brutal act. And of course they didn't, and then later on they did, like
Well,
full
it's not
on.
the
Well,
first
that's
episode to even portray like hanging as like a form of execution.
Yeah, but they don't ever
Like I'm
like
trying to
show the
remember
full
what
body
the
just
Wasn't it the grave?
no. What the
well,
grave
it
no,
was
was
the
the
the other
one where
one.
there was that like
The
They're
guy
trying to
goes
save
into
the
the
guy.
future
yeah,
when
yeah,
he's
yeah,
yeah.
that's
And
literally
he's
called
like
But you just
there's
saw
like
execution.
a
his
guy
feet.
Yeah,
from like that like
But you never saw the
like lived
hanging,
in
like
No, it
the
was
yeah,
super
shadowed.
you
prominent,
saw
and you just
like a
saw like feet.
silhouette of it, but like
Yeah,
well,
it wasn't the
there
actual
there is an episode where you do see someone hanging. I can't remember what episode it is, but there is someone that,
I
and it
think it
happened
was a
like in the last
season
like
one
couple
episode.
seasons. No, no, this is recently. We
Or
were
was it
talking about how
season
shocking it was.
well,
I
there's
can't
the
remember what
one.
episode it
I
was,
think I
but
do remember talking about
um
that. It's like in that there's like a body back there.
well
I
there
don't know if
was
you
a
saw them
mm,
hang, but you did see them hanging.
yeah,
Like you
yeah,
didn't see like
it's
them
not like
intact.
this. Yeah,
This is
I
just
wonder
like
if
I was like,
I
ugh.
wonder if CBS got some complaints.
Oh, I'm
Um,
sure.
but the thing that makes this episode so great and why I really love it as well is it gives you that false sense of security as it's moving along. Yes, it's a little stressful. Yes, he's running, but it gives you that like sense of like everything is gonna be fine because he's getting away from the soldiers. He's finally back at the gates of his property, which once again is a telltale sign. The gates, if you think about if you're religious, think about the fog, think about like an episode like the hunt,
Think
and it
about the
gets to that.
passerby.
We're not going to talk about that episode, but you get to the point of no, but you get to the point where like everything feels calm, everything feels safe. He's running. It's putting you in a false sense of security, and then like I don't know, being knocked unconscious or something. I don't know, being hit by Dan Adams. It's like a shock of the system. What happens at the end, and it's brutal and
Starts singing about birds and
yeah.
leaves.
It's unsympathetic and whatever that word
Passing
is.
grass and green,
Yeah, they should have done.
sky's
They should have done
blue.
the. Oh, dude, you know what this episode reminded me of? Now that you sing that song of 12 Monkeys, like that false sense of security of like,
Oh yeah,
oh, Bruce Willis is gonna stop the virus and he's gonna stop, David Morris, and no, he just gets shot and killed, and everything just continues as is.
I actually was kind of scared for the actor. Like, 'cause obviously the creek below wasn't very deep, and I'm sure that they had the proper safety stuff, but they're just sitting there like, oh God, what if the board gives way?
He came from the lessons of Charlie Chaplin and what's his face? You break
Oh,
your neck and you
Harold
keep moving
Lloyd.
on. Harold
Yeah,
Lloyd and
exactly. Oh yeah.
who was the one
Buster
that broke his
Keaton.
neck and never
Buster
realized it?
Keaton.
Buster Keaton, yeah. So he's just like, oh yeah, he's a big fan of Buster Keaton. I saw him in that episode a few years ago where he had a big, whatever thing with sparklers on top of his head. I'll do that. I'll just
Execution was the episode I was referring to with the time travel.
Yeah, yeah,
The guy
yeah,
goes to the future and hangs the
Mm-hmm.
doctor or whatever, or
Yeah, that
yeah, hangs
was
him out the window,
execute.
but he gets hung in the beginning
Mm-hmm.
of the tree.
Yeah, and
There's
that was
another one where the
season
guy's
1, episode 26.
there's another one where a guy's gonna be hung and he like killed because he was drunk. I think he like ran over a kid or something. It was like in the older like West.
Wasn't that the gift?
No, the gift's the one with
No,
the
that was the
space
one
Jesus.
that was set in Mexico, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and
Right,
like
right.
in the
Space
end, the rope
Jesus.
breaks, I think, or something like that, or they decide
Um,
not to kill. The guy lives, I know that, and they say, "Well, that's that." And the dust,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
dust.
yeah.
I think
Yeah,
that
that one
one
also had
technically
but
showed a
that one
hanging, but
had
it broke.
more of the almost like wooden platform
Yeah, it was a
that they would place those who
traditional.
were executed on.
It's time
Yeah.
for a hanging. Woohoo!
Mm-hmm.
I'm
It's a
trying
Ren and
to.
Stimpy joke. It's not. Yeah, no, never mind. Move on.
No, I'll be honest with you, Jacob. I'm as old as you. I don't remember. I've never watched Ren and Stimpy.
The fuck is wrong with you?
I haven't seen them either.
I watched the whatever new episode that kind of got put out there in the open for everyone, but doesn't she get hung in spur of the moment? Is that what happens in that episode?
No, I
No.
think it's from what
No,
I
I'm just
remember
joking.
like reading about it, it's like wasn't spur of the moment like it was her past self trying to warn no,
Her
it was her
future
future self
Yeah.
self.
trying to warn her past self. But then her
I'm just
past
being
self,
an
I guess,
just being
was
an
like
asshole.
I don't know, there was something about like relationships
Yeah,
involved or
abusive
like of making
people.
like an unwise decision regarding that. It's been a while since I watched it, so
I mean, you didn't watch our episode last week?
I'm going
Gosh,
to.
Alex, gosh.
I'm
You could have learned all
sorry.
about how much we love that episode.
I can't wait.
No. Actually, yeah, it's gonna. I know we just talked about. Anyways, so we'll kind of get to the conclusion. So he's finally made it back to his estate, which apparently is real close to Owl Creek, and his wife is coming out like an angel almost. It's really weird. Like he's running towards her, like Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and she's coming out slowly, coming out for him and they finally get to each other. And Alex, what happens next
So
after they reach each other finally? After like 10 minutes.
then there's a huh, and then there's the
A what?
twist.
There's a hot tub, and
It was like huh. There's
Yeah,
there's a little kind of a hole on its neck,
yeah,
and then
it's
immediately
crazy.
there's a
stretching.
back to reality
Oop, there
where
comes
he's
gravity.
There goes
where
gravity.
he passes away.
Yeah, by
Expired.
how?
He
He
expired.
expired.
He was just kind of hanging out.
Exactly. Nice.
Look, I have to
Basically,
consider YouTube here, okay?
oh please,
Oh,
the
please.
things we say on this.
It's just
We talk about penis stretchers. And, oh my God, Alex, come on, Alex.
okay. Maybe it's
Um,
just because I've seen like a bunch of like true
A
crime
bunch of
story
penis
videos
stretchers?
where it's like sometimes
I mean,
YouTube censors are just really fucking weird, okay?
Well, no, I mean, I'm
Around
not
certain
going to
topics.
show a
And
picture
I
of
want
him
it to be
hanging.
like I want to be considerate because it's like,
No,
you know,
it's fine. I
it's
appreciate the
not the
consideration,
best sort
but
of like it's not the
well, no,
best
but
kind of
like
visual for
I'll
people
be
to be like exposed to.
well,
But
no,
yeah,
no. I'll be
anyway.
honest with you. I don't. If it's something really graphic, I never put it in the videos anyways, just because
Hmm.
I put pieces of trailer in something they copyright claim that nonsense. But no, I
I
mean
can do it.
you're right. His head, he like reaches for his wife, and all of a sudden his head like knocks back, like something out of a
I got it.
out of a Tom McFarlane, creepy whatever, and then all of a sudden he's hung.
He's
He's
hung.
hung?
He's hung. He's goddamn. Uh, oh god, I'm so tired. Yeah, no, he's hung by his neck. He's killed. He's basically he dies within like it's
He's
one of those
become
things
an
where
ex-parrot. He's joined the choir invisible.
this
He's gone
parrot
to
has
meet his
ceased to
maker.
be.
I'll stop.
Oh my god, there was what else? There was something else I was watching where everything happens within like a second. Oh no, is that episode of Black Mirror that I watched where the video game episode where the guy is experiencing this
Jesse
whole
Plemons?
scenario and it takes place within like a tenth of a second or even less than that. And it's the same thing here. It's like
That's the one in
the
the house,
idea of
right?
like
The haunted house.
what's that? Yeah,
The one
yeah,
where he's
it's
in the
like a
house.
video game because like yeah, it's
Who was that? Who was the guy in that?
that's Wyatt Russell. That's
Yeah. Kurt Russell.
Kurt
that's from
Russell's
the
son.
guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the guy who directed Prey and Cloverfield Lane or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So
Trachtenberg.
yeah, Dan
Yeah, Dan
Trachtenberg.
Trachtenberg.
But yeah, it's interesting because apparently all this stuff happened within a fraction of a second. So him falling, him in the lake, him it's just like the idea you see all this crap before you die is like a big thing in like religion and going, or when you die, it depends on how you look at everything. But yeah, yeah. What do you guys think about this? Like it's fucking dark as shit, but it is definitely a top-notch way to end an episode. Maybe.
Well, one more
Am I
thought
wrong?
on the whole kind of like your life flash before your eyes kind of a
Yeah.
thing. Like that's, I'm sure kind of what they were going for with that. So
I don't know, a representation of his life, him trying to get back to his life or something like that. I don't know what's important.
well,
to him.
getting to his happy place, getting home is
Yeah.
probably the thing.
He couldn't even get a hug though. Damn, I went
Nope.
all that way.
He needs a scene like in
Felt
Happy
set up.
Gilmore where he is like
I
a
think
He's like, oh,
Yeah. I feel like at least my own interpretation of it is that like I think in I guess his final moments like that of being like just a living I think kind of going off of what I talked about with like mortality and just like how I think oftentimes I think when you're going through like an everyday sort of routine or just like life can feel I guess like a bit mundane. I think sometimes you can forget sort of like the importance of like enjoying sort of things big and small that can end up really mattering most when that's almost like taken away from you sort of thing. So I think in that moment of him kind of having that almost like flash, I think there's a lot of really great moments where it has like these really like gorgeous sort of extreme close-ups of like the leaves and this bug and him like being able to like really like dig his hand into the sand in front of him when he's on shore again and be able to like actually like tangibly hold it or to be able to just like lean against a tree and sort of run through all this foliage. And I think so much of just life can feel like oftentimes I think sometimes when you're just so focused or just so like I think kind of I guess the vernacular I guess sort of be able to like kind of share is just like when you're on that grind or when you're just kind of getting through day by day and just feels like you're surviving. I think there are times where I think sometimes you don't appreciate like your natural surroundings or just those things that once they're taken away from you, like his family or being able to just experience life. I think that's when he kind of realizes the true sort of value of it is like right at the end when in a way it's like he doesn't get to make that choice almost like in a way it's like his death is at this point in the control of other people. It's not even based on like I don't know like natural causes or like something naturally sort of tragic happening to him per se. This is something where it's like it's been planned almost to a point where I think when he realizes that he doesn't have any sort of autonomy or any sort of grip on like just what he's going to leave behind, I think that's where I guess a lot of his sort of I think that's just where a lot of his own thoughts kind of go to that we get to see on screen. So I think in that way that's why I kind of mentioned earlier that it's just in a way like a beautiful tragedy. Like it's allowing sort of the audience to be able to kind of also experience sort of these final moments and final thoughts and feelings kind of at a time that otherwise is just very, I think, very graphic and violent. But it's like, I think what I like about it is that like we don't stay in that tension for too long. It's only at the very beginning. And then you have this kind of like elongated, almost like you have it's like almost like elongated montage, so to say, of him just being able to just enjoy a little bit more of life before sort of death hits him.
Yeah, it's really interesting that as you were talking, I was thinking of Hades Town, which is, spoiler alert, is a story of how Orpheus goes after Eurydice by going to Hades and trying to vie for her life. But when they come back, she has to, or he has to walk in front of her and can't see her until they escape back out into whatever world. And at the very last second, he looks back and she's lost forever. And it's the same thing here. It's like a tragedy that's so sad. And because he, like, what happens to him when he loses, when he breaks his neck or when his neck is broken or whatever, at the hanging, and when he falls to his death and all that stuff, like, what happens to, like, what happens to him at that point? Does he go back to his wife? Is he lost in some kind of, you know, whatever that world is between heaven and hell? What is that called?
Purgatory.
Like Limbo.
Purgatory.
Yeah, limbo, purgatory. Like it just makes you wonder, like, is all the care and wonder, is it just go to black? I mean, it really is a tragedy, like you said, Alex. So it's kind of crazy.
I
Mhm.
find
It's one
it
of those great story or the great mysteries of life.
I
Yeah.
find it curious or interesting that we sympathize with this character so much, and you really do, and they did a really good job of you sympathizing with this character and wanting to get where he's going and feel bad for him
Mhm.
for dying in this horrible way and truly sympathize with him. But we know nothing about this guy. He could be a child rapist for all we know. I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
we have
it's
no
true.
idea why he's being hung. He could be the worst person on earth. But I think they did a really good job of, like, I mentioned this earlier, but like at first I was like, why is he being hung? Or why is he being executed? And then that just kind of like floats away. I didn't really think about that after that. It was
Mhm.
just more of like this is a human being and he's trying to survive. And I can relate with that. I mean, not like that I've been hung and I'm trying to get away from
Are you saying you aren't hung?
well,
Are you saying that he should have a penis
glad you
stretcher with him?
asked.
I
Huh?
think it's just one of those things about just how I think as human beings, there's a sort of almost like, as I was watching it, I kind of wrote that there's sort of a true resilience of sort of the human spirit to just kind of keep going in
Yeah.
spite
Absolutely.
of like potentially meeting sort of the end of, at least for the end of his life, he was sort of being greeted to it in this moment. But I think the idea of him almost going to his head to then escape and hypothetically think of himself running versus, I think, living and being content with it. I mean, even when there was that moment, like right before the execution, where he's almost breaking down, I think that's when he's really confronting these final sort of emotions that otherwise he was putting a brave face about, or like I think as Jacob said, he just was very stoic, I think, until his family kind of came up to his mind, where I think to him it's like, oh, I'm going to miss so much. I'm just going to miss being able to live and to breathe and the loved ones around me and just kind of being able to exist in this world that I was able to live in and be able to create for myself. So I think in that way, I think that's what makes it really, I don't know, like I guess bittersweet in that way, but as kind of was mentioned before, it almost doesn't matter where this person came from because I think everyone is human. I don't think anyone is ever perfect or some shining example of how to best be a human being because I think a lot of us are just figuring our shit out. And then, at least with this existing in the Civil War, it's obviously there are going to be polarizing views and sort of ideologies in place to where there will be disagreements, or some people will sort of die in this if it's because of this being existing within this sort of wartime where there just unfortunately was so much of this sort of left and right
Well,
during the
that's what
Civil
I was
War.
gonna
So,
say. That's what's even that's even more horrifying about it.
mm,
This is probably just a random day in the middle of October. Just one guy gets hung,
yeah.
and they go off
And they
and
just, they leave him and then we'll probably
yeah,
go to the next sort of rebel
yeah.
or whatever's going on.
I'm
But I
so
think it's like,
so
Rebel
I
depressing.
scum.
think in that way, it's like, I think for the soldiers,
Yeah,
it's like kind of as you said, it's like it's almost so numbing. I think it's so interesting to kind of think of the perspective of the soldiers, even though we don't see much of them, of like just how much sort of trauma and sort of grievances that they carry.
Well,
Um, just from
that's why
like
it's
what
kind
they
of
see every day, but then it's like in
yeah.
a way they also forget that this man is human in that moment when they take away his watch. It's just like,
Well,
oh, he's void
that's
of like it's just only the clothes that he's wearing that he gets to hold on to before he passes away too. Interesting.
That's kind of the interesting thing about a whole thing is once the rope breaks, it's all of a sudden like this big adventure. People are shooting at him. It becomes more important. Then at the end, it's just like, oh, it really wasn't that important. It was just guy imagining like he got
Who's to
away
say
with.
it's not important though? Like those last minutes,
Hmm.
like I lost
Well,
some of
to
my
him, it's
fear about
important,
this
but I'm just
time.
saying
Right.
like
That's but
it's
It's
a
that's
like
the
every
very
point.
second counts until
well, no,
Right.
it's the
I'm just saying
end.
like it's a very by the book hanging of someone. You know, take him to a bridge or take him to a whatever where they can hang him off the side of a bridge or whatever. But in that last second, it becomes important to him to get to his wife. He sees his wife. The rope breaks. Everything becomes fantastical to the point where they're missing shots on him. He's getting away, and then in the end, he's just another person that's killed. So to him, it was an excitement of getting to his wife, but in the end, it was just another person who
Yeah.
imagined that he yeah, that's what I'm leaning toward.
In
I
the
get what you're
grand
saying. I'm
scheme
just
though, no, it just
yeah, yeah,
it's
I'm just
I
I would
yeah.
lost
say like a good sort of example of I guess a film that touches upon sort of death and like how people I guess offer like remembrance towards those even though, I or like the kind of legacy that they carry is just with I don't know why I was thinking of Coco, but I think the way that they even touch upon how, kind of with every person who passes away, there's always a story and a history, and there's people who did once remember and get to know this person and get to be, around this man. It's not even just his family. It's like he probably left other friends or coworkers, cohorts. Like there's a lot that I think one person can leave behind and can make, I think anyone can make a big impact on those around them. So I think in that
Yeah.
way, showing that sequence of events of him just trying to get back towards being able to just live one more time, even, I think shows just how complex and like multidimensional like a human being really is. Because even
Mhm.
if we're looking at it just like in an animalistic way, maybe potentially in this case because of him being executed, and then it's like, oh, it's just sort of he just in a way it's like there is sort of that stoic, like almost like, oh, it's just another number of casualties affected by this war. But when you really look into, I think when you really delve into sort of, I think even just historically, the different stories and points of view that just were so, like, I think that are even today are just so fascinating, but also so devastating to learn about. I think with
You're
like
right.
events like this, I think it just shows that with this man, it's like there's just so much that he kind of offers where it's like, oh, it's like for a short moment we were able to like get to know this person. Even if there was like hypothetically this like epilogue of or just even how do I describe this? Or like even with there just being an image of let's say it was like this man's grave and then it's the family like visiting him at the cemetery. Like even that just image or sort of visual alone can tell a full story. It's like a picture. It's like the phrase that's like what is it? A picture can say like 1,000 words or something.
Yeah.
yes. Yeah.
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 So I think even with that sort of moment, I think even with that last shot of him just hanging there, I think just speaks a lot to just how sort of that time period was, even if we didn't necessarily live in it. But I think that's also what makes the Twilight Zone so timeless too, is that even the Twilight Zone in the 60s, being able to depict this story that takes place a century before, and for us to still be able to resonate with it and be able to sort of identify it, but maybe in a different way, or apply it to like just a different war or different like current event that's going on, or even just in
Right.
general. I think that's why I think this episode is so important because it really is one of those episodes that epitomizes that like less is more. And I think with some of the best episodes that we've even seen through the Twilight Zone, I think it's like where it's like you really, I mean, honestly, you just don't need a lot. I mean, the pilot episode was just about one man becoming kind of crazy in this isolated space. And even though that's not one of my favorite episodes, I still think that sort of isolation and paranoia, I think, just allowed to the premise to at least be entertaining. But I think that's at its core what the Twilight Zone is good at doing.
Absolutely. I think that's a good starting place for that.
I feel like I've been talking a lot, by the way, but I just have a lot to say.
That's okay.
In the moment, it just like, I don't know. I didn't realize how much I actually had to like, I guess, say aloud, because when it was kind of placed onto me, I was like, oh, great. I guess I don't have a second to like process like the notes I wrote or anything, but yeah, I don't know. I think the closing narration helps sort of
Number
epitomize it
86.
too at some point. I don't know what you said.
Is that Nick? We can't hear you.
Sorry. I thought I was like, why is everybody ignoring me?
They're all
No.
because you've been
I was saying Jacob's right. I think Jacob would love to do the closing narration, right?
tired of these guests telling me when to do my narration.
I wasn't. I was just saying it was a good segue. I'm sorry.
This is a segue. I'll take it. We'll let you off the hook this once.
Thanks.
Where is it? Oh, there it is. An occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge in two forms, as it was dreamed and as it was lived and died. This is the stuff of fantasy, the thread of imagination, the ingredients of the Twilight Zone.
Beautiful as it lived and died. Beautiful stuff of fantasy.
As I live and breathe.
Oh yeah.
As you live and breathe, as you snap the neck of society and take it by force.
So, do you guys think that it would have been? Was that like too much? I mean, was it like because they could have just like mid sentence cut to black and just showed his body, or do you think the was needed? Because I was thinking in my head when I was like, okay, I'm pretty sure this is what's going on. I wonder if he's gonna be sitting there and just go and then like it's gonna hang him exactly.
You're
the
just
way
waiting
it
for the
played
Wilhelm
out.
scream.
Like literally the exact way it played out is like one of the things that went through my head, and I was like, nah, they won't do that, but they did that.
They should have done the Wilhelm scream.
What?
I don't think that would
Right.
have been the best case scenario here, but that's me.
I don't even
Can we
think.
get an edit?
No, I'm joking, but I don't think was the Wilhelm scream even available at this point, or was it made famous?
I'm gonna say no.
I think it happened in a 50s Western.
I don't
Was
think it
Western?
Oh,
came
it
up.
did, but I don't.
Or was it a
Yeah,
60s Western? It didn't become a thing until I think Star Wars did it first, didn't they?
yeah. I think Star Wars made it popular or whatever. But before we get into rankings, did you guys have any more things you want to say on the episode
Pretty good
besides
shit.
being, yeah, good shit, fantastic, worth the price of admission, places and things and people and cats and dogs living together, mass hysteria.
Places and persons and things and dangalangs.
Triv, do you have anything?
No,
Fucking
I'm pretty good.
nonsense.
Alex, speak now or forever hold your peace.
Honestly, I spoke a lot during this episode, so I think
Dude,
I said a
like
lot.
how you just feel
Wait.
sad. You feel
It's an
guilty for
audio
talking
format,
so
isn't
much.
it?
No, I
okay.
was just like, oh, wait, I did say a lot on this episode.
I mean, you
Wait,
made
Nick, what were you
pad the
saying when you were
episode out.
muted though?
I don't remember. I
What?
think I told. I think I literally said I think Jacob's ready for the closing narration. He's ready. He's
Oh,
ready for
okay.
closing. So
Okay.
that's all. I probably said something else, but I don't
Perfect
remember what I said.
time.
Mm.
But once again, that's why we are an audio and podcast. You're allowed to talk, Alex. You're allowed to say whatever you want, whenever you want, however you want.
I'm just making sure, okay? Because I'm a guest. A guest.
You're like our fourth
I show
chair
up.
at this point.
You're our guest. Be my guest. Be my
I
guest.
mean, I
Are
guess.
you
I
like?
don't know.
I mean, you're the glue that would hold us together if we were the Muppet Vision 3D. You know.
No, don't.
be-
Oh, let's not talk about
You
that.
be
That made me
the
so sad.
Triv, where is this in Pace Magazine and IMDb?
So we have it at. Well, any thoughts on where this is?
Number one, of course.
13.
25.
All right, so for
Comes after
paste,
24.
it sits at 12.
Ooh.
And IMDb it sits at 17. The reviews on IMDb were interesting. You either had people that absolutely adored this and saw all the good that was in it, but then you get this random group of people that's like, it's too artsy fartsy. Oh, it's not a Twilight Zone thing. They compared it to Monty Python, the and Holy Grail, like he keeps running, which it's like, do you not
Come on.
understand what that all stands for? But
But
yeah,
also
that's
Scooby-Doo did it first.
well, yeah,
That's
Yeah.
the T.
Yeah.
And you know,
If
and
you're gonna reference anything as having the running back and forth, it's fucking Scooby-Doo.
yeah,
Absolutely.
Betty Hill
What
does the same
else?
thing. Yeah, they can go all fuck themselves because yeah, with that said,
No, they can just chase their tail.
well,
for
that
Oh,
too.
so
funny.
good.
Yeah, that too.
Mhm.
So, all right. So, with that said, let's do the last segment, which is a Twilight Zone ranking list, the greatest ranking list to ever cross a bridge. All right. So, I will start here with number 4.
You were just saying number 1.
Well, I have to be reasonable here. I know it's not going to go number 1 because a certain episode of The Invaders is there, so that's definitely not going to number 1.
Invaders is number 2.
Well, no, I'm just saying it's not going above Invaders. I already know that for a fact. So,
Okay, but also be going above Eye of the Beholder.
which I think this is better than Eye of the Beholder. So that's just me.
I agree. Because I was
I
gonna.
don't.
Okay. Well, as far as like, for me, it's like, I think this episode is not. I think because of the subject matter of the episode, this isn't one that I would necessarily like revisit in the same way as Eye of the Beholder.
Mm-hmm.
And I also feel Eye of the Beholder had a really great twist, had a lot of fun, shadow play. I personally really enjoyed Eye of the Beholder, and I think that one, I think just has a bit more of a iconic status. I think when people like reflect back on like the most recognizable Twilight Zone episodes, I don't
For
think a
good
lot of
reason.
people recognize Owl Creek Bridge. I wish more people did, but that's just kind of
I agree with
how
that.
how that is. But with that, I personally think Owl Creek Bridge should be number 2.
I think it should be number 4. I think that this is not. To go to what you said, I don't think it's a wonderful episode. I enjoyed it greatly. I'm not saying I'll never rewatch it, but I do not think it is nearly as rewatchable as our top 3. I think they are like
I mean,
top tier rewatchability, and the
I do agree,
first
but I
time.
would rewatch this more than Death's Head Revisited.
Yes, I said number 3 or number
Personally.
and you got to remember,
4.
I'm a guy who
That's
says
above
Schindler's
this one.
List is like the greatest film ever
Yeah.
made. So that's how I
I
roll.
I think this should be
Hmm.
number 4 because I do think this is more, in my opinion, more rewatchable than Death's Head. But I think the first 3 are just on next level rewatchability. Also, each of them, especially the top 2, each of them, the twist was kept masterfully. It was a twist in plain sight, but at the same time, it was so masterful. They were so masterfully done that the first time watching it, you didn't guess that on either of them. And the shelter, to a degree, I could see you maybe guessing what was going to happen with the shelter just based on knowing you're watching the Twilight Zone. But those first 2, you never saw that twist coming. So when it happened, it was like, holy shit. This one, it had a great twist, and I still really enjoyed it. But I know at least me and Triv picked up on it like long before it happened. That doesn't detract from the episode as a whole. I still think it was wonderfully done, but there has to be something said for having such a banger of a twist that's so integral to the story, and them being able to get you to the end of the story without giving that twist away. But it's also one of the great twists, those 2 first ones especially, that you go back and rewatch it and you see it in a totally different light and it's still just as damn good, like this one, and you pick up on so much more stuff. That's my opinion. I would
Trev?
put it above Death's Head, under the shelter. I'd be willing to talk about number 3 because the shelter, I think what the shelter has on this one is its rewatchability. But beyond that, that's why with that one I'm what do you call it? Flexible.
Number 3.
I mean, I would go number 3 too. I mean, we put it right under the Invaders. This is very difficult at this point where like we're talking about top 10, top 5 at this point. So
This top 3.
yeah, top 3. So this is like literally the cream of the crop of, you
Yeah.
know. So
I do agree with
Alex, what do you
Alex,
think?
though. I do wish this episode had more awareness around it, because like I know I have to have seen this at some point. I've watched them all, but that was over 20 years ago, and this is like watching it for the first time for me. Like when it came on, I was like totally, I just like nothing. I didn't remember anything about it, so this was like the first time, and like this is a wonderful episode that I think anybody who has even a passing interest in the Twilight Zone needs to watch, regardless of where it ends up. And it should be more recognized, like the Eye of the Beholder and Invaders, Monsters Are Due, all those. I think it needs to be up there in that echelon.
What do you think, Alex?
I, at least for me with the Invaders, from what I remember from it, I do recall the way that it played with like, just like with who was giant and who wasn't. I do recall it being like a little silly, and personally, I think it's a great sort of iconic episode of the Twilight Zone that I think deserves to be kind of up there, but it wouldn't be as up there for me personally as far as like how I would look at this. But at the same time, I do think it should go above the shelter regardless. But because you guys do really like the Invaders, I'm willing to compromise on number three and have it be there, but I just really do feel like with this episode, it's like I think also with Eye of the Beholder, with how just sort of just almost like I think just also with sort of the themes that Eye of the Beholder carries about like sort of that perception of like what is different, what makes people stand apart, and I think that sort of I guess sort of sort of twist or sort of like paradigm shift on what you could have expected, I think is something that I'll always kind of hold on to just from I mean, you guys know that like I kind of have like I have a past with like being diagnosed with a disability, so I think that's why that one just really resonates and just sort of sits with me in the same way that like miniature does. So I personally don't feel that sort of resonation with the invaders or the shelter. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I just think with Owl Creek Ridge, I think it just I think the reason why I just really wanted it at number two is just because it just is so like it's just one of the few episodes I can think of where I can be like, oh, it's phenomenal. Like I don't like I think from start to end it's just sort of perfect. And that's been very hard for me to sort of sit with and sort of I guess sort of offer that opinion. Um, but I just think in the way that it just really just solidifies at its core just what the Twilight Zone is. As I kind of said, it's like sort of with that closing narration of how it's sort of this thread of imagination, but there also is sort of this grounded, like melancholy reality to it. I think just really, really sticks, and I just, I just would want a very emotionally driven sort of dramatic episode to kind of be up in the top three. Either way, I just think comparing Owl Creek Bridge and the Invaders, I would personally put it above Invaders personally because of that, even though I wouldn't like watch this, even though I wouldn't want to like revisit this episode all the time. You know what I mean? But I think it's just such a special episode to me, and I think also for so many people, but I think it's just such I guess at least for me as far as like understanding like different science fiction premises, I also felt
Mhm.
like The Invaders was a bit more conventional. Whereas this one I felt like I think it's just really one of a kind. So I don't
Yeah.
know. I just would have liked it. I personally see it as number two because of just how one of a kind it is and just like how like almost perfect that it is. But that's
Understood.
pretty much what I was saying.
In response to that, I did want to say, because you did say one thing. Well, beyond, like I said a moment ago, admittedly, I can say, at least to a degree, I do think that the invaders premise, like you said, it's fairly conventional. I think it's invaders soars with its execution. Its execution was masterfully done, as was this one, and as was, I mean, we're talking top three. I think we don't even have to mention that these are all
Hmm.
top tier. These are legend status. Um,
Right.
You had mentioned you thought the invaders had some like I can't remember specifically how you said it, like goofy or corny elements to it. And I
Like it
think
just felt like, well, I
no,
guess
no,
it's like
I'm
I
agreeing.
mean, it's not to say that like I mean, it's just one of those things where it's like, okay, you see this woman like becoming
Well,
like having paranoia over like almost like these little like robots kind of like
oh, I've got one.
I don't know,
Um,
like kind of like imagine me being terrified of this,
they look like they
you
actually
know?
kind of look like that little
And then
Stay
it's
Puft
like,
Marshmallow
yeah.
Man robots.
Hmm.
Well, and
Right.
that part of it, and I'll say about Eye of the Beholder as well, the quote unquote creatures in them, they keep them fairly shrouded in mystery, but there are a few times they show them in the Invaders towards the end, and they do look kind of, admittedly, they look kind of goofy. I think she did a wonderful job, but the robots, by today's standards especially, is kind of like, what is that? And just like with the Eye of the Beholder when or Eye of the Beholder when it shows the twisted face people, it's so over the top. It's kind of like the fuck is that? But with the I think Eye of the Beholder was purposely, it was like so different than that. That's the point they're trying to make with the Invaders. I think it was just like kind of a limitation of the time of what they were trying to show and do. And
Hmm.
I try not to hold that against things within reason. I do think you need to know your limitations when making film or TV, but in that one, I was okay with it because it didn't really show them nearly as much as I remembered. When we went back and watched it, it only shows the little robot men like twice, really. You see like glimpses of them, but it only shows them like has a reveal of them,
Hmm.
and then one of them it shows it one more time. So I was kind of like, well, that was a little bit more sparingly done than I thought because the reveal needed to be there so she could finally see it. And
Hmm.
I try not to hold it against it. There's other movies, especially like from the 70s. I mean, say like Dawn of the Dead. I think that's a masterpiece film. It's wonderful. But like the blood in that movie is clearly just fucking red paint. It looks awful. But I don't hold it against it because it was just a time. And this one, I don't hold it against the Invaders for having these kind of, by today's standards, especially goofy looking little robots.
Hmm.
They're sparingly done, but it just is what they had to work with.
Hmm. I'm just saying that as far as like from what I recall, it just was hard
Yeah,
for me to like invest in it in the same way that I did other episodes where maybe did go that more like conventional like sci-fi route at the time, but I still
oh yeah.
like really enjoyed them. But that's just
It is an
me.
episode that is, even though it is my favorite, and it was when we rewatched it, I did remember it being a bit more goofy than it actually was when we rewatched it. When we rewatched it, I was like, because I remember the robots. When you said that, I was like, she's talking about the robots because they look kind of, and the woman, I remember her being much more like, like raging out all over the place,
Hmm.
and she doesn't really, not as much. When I watched it with a more critical eye this last time, I was like,
Hmm.
she actually did a fantastic job. And yeah, the
Yeah.
robot's a little wonky, but
Hmm.
it really only shows them twice. So,
Yeah.
but I heard you say that it
Hmm.
was kind of goofy, so I figured that had something to do with it. But I do
No, yeah,
think
I
that,
understand. I didn't have a good way of like saying it, like almost like I don't know, I guess I had more of like at least to me, like I guess when it established kind of who was quote unquote against who, I thought
yeah,
of it as like kind of, oh, this is just a little jovial. This is very like out of this world kind of thing. But I do agree that the twist in that episode I think is very I think it's still fun. Like it's still fun sci-fi, and I think if it didn't have the lead actress that it did, I don't think it would have been able to pull any of it off
no, she was like
personally.
what was it? Was she a
But
mime, a trained mime, or trained something like
I
that?
think there was something about her
Or
parents did sign language, or they were deaf or something.
yeah, or something like that, or she was trained, and I don't know, something that obviously helped her with that. But that's that
hmm.
episode. We've done that one. Yeah, I mean, top
I'm gonna leave it up to
three,
you
top
guys.
five is wonderful. I think.
Okay, so here's a question for, we know where Alex wants it. We know where Jacob wants it. Triv, where would you, after all that they've said, where would you put it?
I kind of stick with three because for me, I don't remember Invaders, and having watched it, I didn't necessarily see the end coming. This and
Mhm.
Owl Creek do have a fair amount of similarities just as far as like they rely on like Nat sound, and there's not a lot of talking. It is very basic in that respect. And on one side you have Owl Creek that is very cinematic. It follows a lot of stuff and it tells a fantastic story. On the other side you've got the Invaders, where it's basically a single room shot with one single person and the goofiest motherfucking aliens you've ever seen in your whole life.
But
Mm-hmm.
it's captivating. And
Yeah.
I
Of
mean, sorry.
Absolutely. Of the two. And I asked this, I would watch either one at a moment's notice, but I am slightly in favor more of Invaders than I am Owl Creek, and that is by the slimmest of margins. So
Oh,
for
absolutely.
me, I would say Owl Creek at 3 is where I stick. And for once I actually mean it.
Oh yeah, you're right. Number
Wow,
3.
I'm glad you didn't mean it the other times. Jeez, true. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, I mean that's fine. Like I said, you guys went at 3. I know it's really splitting hairs at this point, so I would put it number 1, but that's just me. But we're not gonna go down that route because it is getting late. But yeah, I guess for the time being, we'll put it there at number 3. So
I'm good with I'm
um,
good with it being at 3.
I mean, I
yeah,
feel like the top 5,
Mm-hmm.
really the top 10, but especially the top 5, those should be the ones that anybody, if you're gonna say something about Twilight Zone, here, watch these 5.
yeah,
And
exactly.
you should be blown away by every one of them, and I think you will be.
Right. Okay. So with that said, new number 3, which I actually never thought that would happen again. An occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge. Number 1 is Eye of the Beholder. Number 142 is The Trouble with Templeton. Next episode is season 5, episode 23, called Queen of the Nile. Queen of the Nile. What a wonderful, I'm sure, tragic episode. Directed by John Brom, written by Jerry Soule. Stars Ann Blythe, Lee Phillips, and Sheila Lovesky. So we'll look forward to that when we come back in the new year. Alex, as always, awesome to have you. Thank you for coming on for the last episode of 2024. With that said, your content, where's it located?
You can find me at youtube.com/Alex Carson, where surely Owl Creek Ridge would be perhaps at number 2 of my personal list, but that's okay. I tried my best. I was this close to getting at number 2, but it's okay.
Well, I mean, you got the
I
top 10
fought the
like you
good
originally
fight.
wanted, so yeah.
Well, I mean,
Which
that
means
was really obvious that it was going to be top 10 to me.
That is the hope.
I just was really trying to have it. I mean,
Yeah.
at the very least, it's top 3, so. And
There
that
you
way
go.
I'm content, but I still wanted to fight for it to be number 2.
There you
So.
go. Walking distance from season 1 still in top 10s, which is pretty crazy. But Jacob,
It's a solid episode.
it is. It is indeed. Jacob, where's your content at? Located, please, por favor.
Jacob Bader's reviews and Richard Jake X. Why? Not any real new content, but I've been putting some stuff together and planning some stuff. But as I said last week, it's probably going to be closer to the end or beginning of the year before I have something go out. Unless I throw something together, because I've really had the itch.
Yeah.
Feel the need for
Need to scratch.
making content. And one more added thing real quick that we forgot was number 117 is a piano in the house.
I'm surprised he remembered that between the two of you.
And my face is
I
stupid.
was seeing how far I could get without them remembering
I was
because they
like-
look like they're really
Honestly,
tired.
Oh no, I
I'm
was
gonna be
ready.
completely honest. I fucking forgot we did that.
I was ready.
We started
And
singing.
by
I
the
was like,
way,
oh.
I was waiting
Jacob,
for
it's
Triv to
100.
Let's
It's
lay it up.
118, Jacob. You missed it. Sorry.
Number
Okay, let's do the-
118 is a piano in
The house.
Why did this become a thing? I'll never remember why.
because it must.
I guess.
Because why not, Dick?
Yes.
Why
Because
not?
anal. Because anal.
Because
There you go.
quick story before we go, and I'm tired of shit, so we need to go. But I used that at work.
Oh
I got
God.
all the looks, and it was on our Discord.
Nice.
So everybody got to see it. Somebody asked a question. I don't even remember what it was. It was nothing. And I just like instinctively typed it out there. It was like, so why did I have to do this? And I just put because anal. And then everybody's like, what? And I didn't
God
respond. I
damn.
just left it.
Sometimes it's better just to let it go.
So there's people across the country right now. They're like, "What the fuck was? What does he mean?"
Jesus Christ. Oh my god. All right, Triv, what you got?
Working on stuff at the moment. I'm a little bit away from being able to get something out. I kind of failed in November, but I will be back and hopefully not sucking in December.
I failed in November too,
Eh,
in October,
yeah.
Triv,
September.
none of you guys failed. You put out content when you have time. That's all that
August.
matters. So whether you believe it or not, that's all that matters. But anyways, for myself, I have content.
Nick,
It's the
where
end-
do you find your content?
Yeah, there you go.
being chased by a
Yay!
small invader. I'm the giant person.
That's adorable. Oh my god. That thing is fantastic.
Is that a Robbie the robot?
No, looks like him though.
So, anyways, so yeah, for the time being, thank you once again for joining us for 2024. We may or may not have something on Christmas as well, but just for the time being, we won't back till January 1st with Queen of the Nile. So, for myself, Triv, Jacob, and Alex, we'll see you guys in 2025 for the Fifth Dimension. Peace out, motherfuckers.
Bye. What are you? Oh my god, Jake isn't actually in the Twilight Zone.
No,
what is
he's
he
in his.
doing?
Who the hell knows?
This is my little invader. Here, I can do the
That is
Mikuru.
freaking adorable, Alex. Oh my god.
That is cool.
Yeah.
That is cool.
I've had this thing since like high school.
Aww. I want to give it a hug. Aww. Aww.
It's Jacob.
Yeah.